Welcome to On the Table, a podcast about board games, card games, and tabletop war games. All right, welcome back to On the Table Gaming, episode 79, and I'm joined by Teemu from 25 Years of Minis and Counting, the blog. You may remember him from actually episode 61 when he came on and talked about the Others faction, and Mika, who actually helped out with the Tabletop Simulator update, but they're here to talk today about a very different subject. So first off, Teemu and Mika, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Now, you guys have been involved in a lot of things in the Song of Ice and Fire community, and today we're going to be talking about campaign gaming. And before we do that, so there is a mini campaign out for A Song of Ice and Fire the Miniatures, an official one called First in Battle, and it's got this little moniker of a mini campaign, and it kind of is played a series of games played at an increasing point value, and your units can gain levels. That's a mini campaign, though. So for people who maybe are jumping into gaming and have never played war games before, have a very shallow background, they're kind of new to all of this. But what's different from regular gameplay, like your competitive tournament play, or even that First in Battle mini campaign, and just like campaign gaming in general? What is campaign gaming?
Well, that's a big question, but let's try to tackle that one. I typically play campaigns. We have a very good club here in Helsinki, and many of us are organizing them. And what I like about it, and I guess that also defines a good campaign, that it creates a narrative, and you're just not playing like a pickup game on a random basis, but you actually maybe have a strategy. You might have a map in your campaign which is interacting with the actual battles you play with your miniatures, and you can build your empire. All those things you might be familiar from computer games, video games, but totally transferable to miniature wargaming too.
And so, Mika, a lot of time people get hyper focused on competitive play. And to be honest, it's been a while since we've done a Song of Ice and Fire like state of the game poll. But in the past, our polls consistently showed that the vast majority of people who play A Song of Ice and Fire, they're not tournament players. So for those that are playing in a more casual setting, what do you think might be the appeal of playing in a campaign style game? Like, what do you enjoy about it, doing that, Mika?
For me, it's actually just variation. So it's nice to go out of the comfort zone of kind of playing same way constantly. So for me personally, it's just about playing the game with a bit different rules this time, maybe a bit different rules that time. Personally, I have nothing against tournament play, so I like tournament plays also, but it's nice that you can have one game and play it in various ways, not just in one way.
And so that's what I want to get into today, is hearing about the campaign that you ran, your War of the Five Kings campaign. And if you're a listener and you're a tournament player, this might be a kind of a fun alternate thing to experience. Or if you're more of a casual player and you've been looking for something that's narrative based, I think you're really going to like what Teemu has come up with here and run successfully. So as we start to go in and talk about your campaign that you ran, kind of big picture first, how was your campaign set up to kind of expand upon A Song of Ice and Fire's flavor and theme? Like, if people are really into the story and the narrative, how did your campaign on the ground level kind of set up to enhance those parts that people like?
I guess the obvious first answer to that is that we were playing on a map of Westeros. Founded it, for example, in Risk variation for Game of Thrones, and there was very strong interaction between the map and the actual campaign game, which is a game in itself, and then the battles with the ASOIAF Song of Ice and Fire tabletop miniatures game battles, and obviously on the map you have these key locations like King's Landing, Winterfell, Twins, Castle Rock, and so forth. So these also had a special impact in our game, in the campaign game. And I think Mika gave a good lead there, saying that having a little bit of a different setup, there was a strong interaction, like I said, between the campaign game and then the actual battles. And for example, I was playing Targaryens, so if I would play with Khal Drogo, and he would be sort of a casualty in my game, then he would have to wait for one round of the campaign to play again, because he was, licking his wounds and recovering. And in this way, I wanted to lead the players to not always play, with the maximum power list
Right.
they are used to playing, but trying out different commanders and any named hero. If that would be a casualty, you were not allowed to use it the next round.
So how did so you got a map then of Westeros that's so cool. So you're kind of layering the game with the map. So how did games play out? How did you move around the map? What was the campaign round sort of like?
Yeah, that's a good question. The campaign has something like 4 different phases, and then shall we quickly recap those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so and this is very much also about what is very important. If I say that first, the very important thing is that there needs to be a balancing mechanic in a good campaign, because otherwise you might end up in a situation that those players that have maybe lost, let's say, the first 2 battles they fought, they might be in a situation that in a bad campaign system, they feel that I cannot win anymore. My chances are gone. And then the motivation drops and people drop out of the campaign. And obviously that's not good. So how we balance the game is actually very much built into this. So the new round begins, obviously, we have a status update. How does the map look like? What's the score? Who's leading? And so forth. And then whoever is ranking lowest gets to make 2 things first. First of all, they throw out a challenge to another player in the campaign. So they can pick up whoever they want. And if they feel that they are not quite up to the challenging those, top tier players, because we had like people like me and Mika, we've been playing dozens of games, and then there were quite a few.
So my free folk army could be like, don't fight the Targaryens. I want to go over.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they can pick up who they want to fight. And obviously you look at the map, okay, who's next to my borders, and then you can choose, do I want to avoid them? Because if they would win the battle, they can conquer my territory. Or if I want to challenge them, because that gives me the opportunity to jump on them and grab their land.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, we have something like 15 different events. And there are better events and not so good events. And those events, there's 2 kinds. They're the kinds that help you in the actual battle. Let's say you get a 10% larger army.
Oh, wow.
Or let's say the other player has to set up their army first before you deploy a single unit. Mm-hmm. And that gives you an advantage in the actual battle.
And how do these events happen? Like, is it random? Is it?
It is picked up in the same order as the challenges are given.
Okay.
So that's also a balancing system. So if I'm last in the campaign, I pick up the opponent, I feel confident that I can have a good game and maybe even win. And then I can take one of the better events, or let's say bonuses, that for example, gives me 10% larger army. And in this way, it's balancing up. If I'm last in the campaign, I'm maybe playing with a little larger army, or I might have another bonus that gives me a better opportunity to improve my position. That's the first part.
So Mika, what was it like as a player when you first started coming into this? Did you have a strategy in mind?
I actually did not have a strategy. I felt that the campaign system, even though Teemu earlier just mentioned that kind of he likes to play strategically, but for me the plan was to go with tactics on mind, so kind of reacting to situations
okay.
as they arise. I of course had guidelines, but I wouldn't want to call it a strategy that I just kind of always acted upon what happened. So kind of carpe diem, followed what kind of happened and acted on what happened on the field.
And what faction were you playing?
I was playing the Lannisters.
Ah,
Sorry.
No, you were not. No,
Stark. I play so many games that I forget. I played
worries.
Starks actually. Starks, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I was just about to say that Mika didn't need any strategy. He was playing damn
Oh
Starks.
my gosh, shots fired. Okay.
Ah.
What? It shows I've ever. So you have this cool like event system, you have a challenge system. It sounds like you're really working on balance and you have a cool mechanic for if characters get wounded in the battle, having to rotate them out. So when
Yeah.
you're playing your games, like you might be in a situation where your best commander that you're most experienced with is sitting around out. And so you might want to challenge like a different person than you might normally. That's really cool. So how did that play into like the final objective of a campaign might be to win the campaign.
Mhm.
How do you win in your campaign?
Yes, so that actually comes then to the next phase of a campaign round. So your goal is to make your empire or your kingdom mightier and mightier. And there's different ways that you can build up your score. The obvious is that obviously when you win the battle, so after the challenges, you go into the fighting the battles, and depending on how major the victory on the battlefield is, you get these empire points that you can use to conquer new territory. If you won the battle against your opponent, you can grab some land from them, so making their kingdom smaller and yours bigger. Secondly, you can build castles and cities, making your once again more mightier. You can hoard some more gold. You can go raiding, steal some more valuable gold, or you can build mines on your mountains to of course mine gold. So there are these different factors playing in. So it's not just the battles. It's your territory. It's your cities and castles and so forth.
So
So
how did you balance the those like elements like you can build mines and you can claim territory, looking at the risk board itself, and for those at home just kind of closing your eyes and envisioning the map of Westeros. The Game of Thrones TV show actually really helped with that, like zooming around. It seems like some places would have better land than others, right? If you're like the free folk and you're like, I have frozen tundra, like
yeah.
yay. I mean, how did you balance that out? Because would some areas, does everyone start with the same amount of territory?
Yeah, everybody started with 2 regions.
Okay. Oh,
And
okay, that makes sense.
yeah, and that was like a really big part of the tactics that for each faction, I have like nominated that they have 3 different options to start from or choose as their starting regions, and so they got to choose 2 out of 3, and that of course was part of the maybe the bigger picture that one player chose both of their areas in the north, so they really wanted to focus there. Mika had one place quite down in the south near Highgarden, and the other one, I think it was, what's the location for Tully's, the River Run, yeah.
Hmm.
So he was in the south and in the middle, so maybe he had a good position to expand, and some players obviously chose to be closer to King's Landing, which was the most valuable place and the most fought over place. But yeah,
To get that money.
yeah. Of course, if you have King's Landing, you have more power. So that's part of the strategy, that choose your starting locations, and then you can only expand your empire to adjacent areas of your current empire. So that's why it's really, really important. And it was always easier to conquer regions that no faction had a hold yet on. And so they were like neutral areas, nobody owned them. And as the campaign proceeded, there were fewer and fewer of these like easy to grab
Gotcha.
regions, and then you were like fighting harder, and choosing who to fight was far more tactical as we went on.
So the Game of Thrones world, the A Song of Ice and Fire world is one that is dominated not just by physical not just by physical contest, but also there's like a lot of like diplomacy and alliances. And was any of that kind of encapsulated in the campaign?
Absolutely, but I can't tell you because I would be revealing all my tricks.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I got some mystery there. All right.
Yeah, no, that was actually encouraged, and at some point, Mika, I think we had a sort of not a very long, but one alliance that we realized that you were not. we were like both quite close to the top, and then we kind of agreed that first of all we don't challenge one another, and that we kind of tried to play so that we both would have a good position to grab the victory in the end, and that kind of thing is actually, that kind of diplomacy is definitely recommended. It really adds to the flavor and really fits the kind of, in the Game of Thrones. We know.
Yeah. So not to rub any salt in the wounds, but Mika, what happened with that alliance there?
Well, it served its purpose clearly, so I won. So
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no! Oh, you dastardly Starks! What? You weren't playing it like Ned and being like, "I'm gonna be honorable and I'm never gonna go out on my word." Or
yeah, and I didn't. But, so the alliance did kind of held to the end, but I just kind of this was quite close to the end, and at that point I really started counting out the points that, hey, what's my best way to go, and Teemu was actually the leader at that point, and
Yes.
of course my
oh no,
gut
you
feeling,
dethroned him.
yeah, exactly, that my gut
Did I make
feeling
a mistake having you both on the podcast? Did I have separate recordings? Are you guys still friends here? What's going on?
Two
so
separate truths.
yeah. So it was kind of that my gut feeling first was that I need to beat the leader, so I need to beat the Teemu. But then I was thinking that, hey, actually everybody wants to beat the Teemu, and I was actually third or even lesser at that point. So I kind of, it was easy to make that deal that, okay,
you got a Peter
don't attack
Baelish
me,
over
and
here.
I won't attack you, and I will attack the second guy, and maybe that brings me a victory, and apparently it did.
That was
Wow.
absolutely the right move, Mika, because in the last round, because after not the last round but the round before, I was leading the campaign, and then everybody came at me, or well, not everybody, but many of them came at me. So there are once again these events, these options. So first I was challenged by one player who had the opportunity to strike at King's Landing, which I was holding. Then another player took an event which allowed him to also challenge me. So I had two battles to fight in the last round. And then the third player used an event which is called like destruction. So he was sabotaging my buildings, my castles, and my cities. And I lost some of my power due to that. And actually, without that last thing that one player did, I would have been second. But then I dropped to the third place, but only like 0.9 points behind Mika. So the five of us, the top five players, were all within 1 point in the final score. And Mika, do you remember how many points did you have? Was like
14.5.
Yes. So it was really, really tight and really, really narrow. And I think that really proved how balanced this mechanism is.
Yeah, it's kind of that it's a good way to balance games, to give a lot of kind of daggers to players. So the beat the leader mentality, that there, if the campaign rules give kind of methods to beat the leader, it helps to keep the balance.
And this sounds like it would be a great event to do with a community that is growing and that has a lot of really veteran players and newer players, in that it gives newer players some other methods to you know, compensate, some compensating factors. They can find the details of this campaign on your blog, 25 Years of Minis. We'll link it in the show notes for this podcast. So say people want to jump in and do this. You're a veteran when it comes to this. You design the system and you've run it successfully. And before the show, you're mentioning you've run other sorts of campaigns in the past. What sort of things do people need to know to be able to successfully run something like this on their own, right? So we're now in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis. I know some places are starting to come out of it, but maybe people have some extra time to plan for these things, planning for their return. What sort of things should they be thinking about so that they could do something like this and be successful?
Yeah, we've covered a few of them. The balance, and that of course linked to players' motivation, is the key. That's the most important thing, and a campaign needs to serve preferences of different players, and also to keep up the motivation. So some people want to play more hardcore. They're most welcome to do that, and then the game can be more balanced because the less experienced players who are not on the top tier, they get these bonuses. So it can still be a good game even if one of the players is far more experienced.
When you're running this, so if you go to a standard tournament, you're going to have like a TO, a tournament organizer who kind of oversees everything and make sure that things run smoothly and that there's a kind of neutrality. How do you ensure things go fairly when you're running a campaign? What are some maybe tips for that?
That's a very relevant question. And obviously me running the campaign and then before the last round leading the campaign, and I've been in this situation before, that then you need to be extremely careful judging or giving any decisions on any questions arising. And actually that's one lesson learned that I was talking to Mika and actually the rest of the people as well when we kind of wrapped up our campaign, that we're going to have the next one after summer, and let's definitely have two umpires. So if I have a stake in the question, in the situation, then I shouldn't be saying anything about it. I should be neutral, and the other umpire could call the decision. Sometimes we even voted on some of. We realized.
That's a good way.
Yeah, we realized that we have a new situation that we don't have a clear ruling on. So I just simply made a voting in our Facebook group, and that's how it was decided. So neutrality, and then of course we ran this campaign for something like 3 months, and I think
3 months.
I really needed to be also playing it and not just being the project manager.
So Mika, as a game, as someone playing in the game, one of the hard parts can sometimes be, having a consistent schedule, right? You got to show up and you have to play these games, and life happens. In fact, more than life happened this year. We have, COVID-19. Were there any times that you had to, miss a game? And what was it? What was the kind of expectation for if you couldn't make a match or something like that?
Yeah, definitely the COVID-19 changed it because as we started this campaign, that Simon's own campaign system arrived actually after that. So we had already started this, and it wasn't yet or the pandemic was just starting in the Asia. So it kind of changed the situation, and of course it came a problem that there were people whom didn't want to touch the tabletop simulator, and then there were people whom really preferred to not see anyone face to face for kind of decreasing the amount of contacts for the reasons of contamination. So there came a bit of problem, and it sadly, of course, did affect this game a bit, this campaign, that there was kind of the I wouldn't say the last went quite smoothly, but the second last was kind of problematic because we kind of faced that realization that now we need to play this kind of remotely, and it might have been a bit complex situation at that point, but we just discussed it out, and then
we found a solution.
There was some kind of proxy playing and stuff, so it was sorted out.
I asked from the players when we realized the situation. I asked them that, okay, please comment here once again in Facebook, what are the methods that you can play.
Mhm.
And then there was this one guy saying, I only play face-to-face. I don't want to use this simulation. And
Right.
then there were people saying, I only going to play simulation. And then this guy challenges another player, and they don't have
Oh,
a,
no, yeah.
a-
So
yeah.
so
And so
how do you is there a way to build into a campaign? Because it's different than like a tournament, right? A tournament could be like a one-day event. How do you build into a campaign like this some sort of mechanism for if players do need to skip out or drop out?
yeah, our people in this campaign, we had a really good motivation. And typically the campaign round would be run 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it went in 2 weeks because everybody was so eager to do it. And then the last couple of rounds were maybe slower because
Mhm.
of these challenges.
Yeah.
But the last round, everybody chose an opponent that they knew they can arrange a game. And on the round before, in this situation that I described, I stepped in as a proxy and played for the other part or the other player. I also had offered that if somebody simply just can't find the time, I can take the other's faction and,
Oh, man,
and
jeez.
step in as a proxy. For some reason, nobody wanted that.
Yeah. And so how many rounds did you play out your campaign then?
It was 5 rounds. We had in the rules we have a random length for the campaign, because I've seen in previous campaigns that if everybody knows that now this is the last round, they start making actions that are like short-term goal thinking and not strategic thinking. So
Hmm.
after 4 rounds, we rolled the dice, and on a 2+ on a d6, the campaign would continue for one more round, and it did. And then after 5 rounds, it would be one more last round on a roll of d6 4+ result, but it was not to be. And there it ended, and Mika won.
Oh, so there's a mad dash at the end there. So Mika, what was your strategy? How did it play out for you? How did you win this kind of War of the Five Kings campaign then?
Yeah, it was just reacting. So I kind of started maybe a bit lazily. So I only won 2 of my games out of these 5 games, and
Actually, 3, I think. No, 2, only 2.
2. I think only 2. Yeah.
2 or
So
3.
I'm counting these. Yes, 2 only. So I won
Oh my God.
only 2 of the 5 games, and okay, the first game was actually against Teemu's Targaryens, and that I realized that I went bit of a, I don't know what's the English phrase for that, but in Finnish we call it jacket open, that I wasn't maybe focused on the game correctly, that I wasn't focusing enough. But then I realized that this is actually a tough campaign to beat, and then I just reacted on things that happened and kind of secured my points every round. I kind of had a guideline that I don't want to actually be the leader at any point because of the very strong beat the leader mechanism in the campaign. But it was just a guideline that if my tactical playing led to that situation, that I of course will grab all the points that I can get in a round. So, but that kind of, because I lost so many games, I couldn't get that many points. So there was no worrying that I would be the first player at any given moment until
Yeah.
at the very end. So then I just kind of, with those few points that I got, because even when losing you kind of get a pity point that you kind of can expand to neutral areas and stuff. So I just kept on taking the most cost-effective points that I could, kind of to enlarge my empire, and then when the 4th round started and there was like this 2+ that the game ends, I was thinking that okay, I'll trust the dice that there is no need to sprint at this point. But then when the 5th round started, then I was thinking that okay, the 50% chance that this really is the last round, so now it's time to do the big sprint. And then I really had to count, even on a piece of paper. I just made some calculations that what is the optimal move to do in this very theoretically last or second last round.
On a piece of paper, with all the work you did on Tabletop Simulator, I figured you'd have like floating numbers and like computers all around you, all these monitors, and
I had quite many post-it stickers even when I did that
Post-it
Tabletop
stickers.
Simulator.
What?
Yes.
You said there was like an abacus to sliding things around.
No.
What?
Post-it stickers.
I think that's a very good analysis, and I think everybody was surprised that Mika wasn't winning that many games. So I guess everybody felt that, okay, he doesn't seem to be a threat. And he was actually the only start player in our campaign. But so he was like creeping from behind, and suddenly before the last round, he was close to being to the top. And I think also your location was really good. So you had quite a few of these neutral areas that you could, in all this silence, you could just be, crabbing them, and in these events, like I said in the beginning, you have bonuses for the actual battle, or you can have bonuses for building your empire on the map. And I guess Mika was choosing more those latter ones. So even if you lose the battle with the miniatures, you can still grow your empire if you've chosen that kind of bonuses. So that's, I think, was a part of your success.
Yeah, definitely it was. So the southern area, I was very safe there, that I couldn't have won without the location that I had, that I was quite secure there. And as you said, that I took actually one or two those like the game changing things just to kind of see them through, because I was interested to see them through. Some of them were very interesting and quite game altering, and it was nice. But then most of the events that I took were kind of these that gave me direct points to kind of build up my empire.
Yeah, that's a very good example that you can choose a strategy that helps you to do quite well in the campaign, even if you're not winning all of your battles. And that's, once again, is a good balancing system.
Well, this looks so much fun. I'm looking at some of the pictures on your blog too. These are amazing pictures. I do have to say, I love the pictures of the battles, and there's some that are clearly in play. There's one on like round 3 though, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but is this a stage? This must be a staged photo. There's a picture of just Jon Snow. He's the only one left in his unit, and he's activated, and he is surrounded by like 5 units of screamers all ready to charge.
Yes.
Is that real? Because that's scary. I was like, oh no, this poor person.
Yeah, that was a game I played.
Oh no.
I was playing Targaryens. I was the only player with Targaryens, and I had actually lost my second round game against Baratheons. I was stupid, and I actually charged them, which you shouldn't do. I just could have run around them. But so I was feeling that, okay, that's not good. Now I need to really, really win the next round, and I got an opponent playing Night Watch, and he's not as experienced as I am. So it was like ruthless approach and no mercy. And it was 3 rounds wipeout or something like that. But there my gloves came off. And because some of the games against less experienced players, I was maybe experimenting different things and not really playing that hardcore. But there I had to be really tough.
And these models are also painted. So if you guys want to check out the recap of this event and some more details on how it went, go on over to 25yearsofminis.blogspot.com. Looks amazing, and you actually even have the image of the risk board that you used up on the site. So if other people want to kind of use that image to run the campaign for themselves or do some version of it, you've made it available there. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's been quite a bit of interest. So everybody who's then sent me a private message on Messenger, I've shared all of our templates and materials from Google Drive. So people are most welcome to contact me and with one American guy, we translated because our campaign document is in Finnish, but we translated it so it's available in English too.
That's always much appreciated. My Finnish is not so great at this time,
Really?
and uh, yeah. And then I saw you also had some really cool prizes there at the end too.
Yeah, some handcrafts. Mika got his own King's Guard.
It looks amazing. A cool trophy there.
Yeah, that's yes, of course, and it's gonna be, I don't know what's the word in English, but when we have the next campaign, though, whoever wins that then claims that trophy from Mika.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you guys are just a hotbed. Your community is a hotbed of creative thinking and original content. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing for the Song of Ice and Fire community. It's really amazing. I'm excited to see what the reaction to this. I know we have a lot of people that are really interested in campaign events, and it seems like you guys have got a really good formula.
It really worked quite well, and one of the things that people needed to get sort of, wrap their brain around it, that, like I've been talking about, these bonuses that we call events, and they are totally not all that equally good. And people are really like, this is much better than that, and that's over OP, and that's not so good. And I needed to keep saying, yes, they are meant to be, so that the low-ranking players can have better bonuses. And like Mika was saying, maybe one of the most interesting bonuses for the actual battle was, I think it was called Plentiful Leadership. And a player could choose 2 commanders for his army. One would be the real commander getting the commander benefits, but he would get both of those characters in his army and both of their tactics cards. And that was a quite interesting experiment. Pretty powerful, I hear. I never get the opportunity to take it.
It is. You can imagine that you can make quite powerful combinations with certain leaders. So I would say that Stark has certain leaders, and I would presume that Lannister will also benefit from that. So it gave kind of interesting. So as I said in the beginning, that I kind of wanted to play the game in a bit different way, and that definitely makes it different.
It was also like experimenting this stuff, but it worked.
That's amazing. And so, any shout outs you guys want to give here?
Well, I guess I did for Mika for really helping our campaign to transform into hybrid with the TTS. So that was really cool. And also Michael from US, who helped me to translate the campaign document into English. So now it's easier to share. And I had people from Europe and South America and US, UK. So there are people trying this already out, and I think it's a reward in itself to be able to help other people enjoy. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, that's one of the best things about this game, right? Is that, we're still growing as a community. We're all, get to share, collaborate. I think that's in the end what it's all about.
Yep.
So keep up the work, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. And in the meantime, I hope you get your miniatures on the table.